G'day. Welcome to the labs at Bushy Park Estates, Tasmania, Australia. I'm Owen Johnston, Head of Sales and Marketing for HPA. Joining me is Nathan Cowman, Brewery Manager at J. Bogan Son, the local Lion brewery here in Tasmania. We're going to dive into the science behind quality management with our Quality Manager, Peter Hamilton, and our Lab Coordinator, George Webster.
We take pride in our hops and the beers you make with them. That's why we have a no-nonsense quality management system. It's ISO 9001 and HACCP certified, so brewers can be always assured that they're going to get high-quality Australian hops.
Quality starts on the farm. We have a team of around 20 people spread across the business who are tasked with maximising the quality of our hops from the vine through to the final package. And this lab is the centre of it all.
We have labs on each of our farms and they have a pretty high throughput over harvest, so it's important that our methods are easily repeated and very robust. In the lead up to harvest, the quality team moved through every single garden 3 or 4 times, taking a representative sample of hop cones from the vines to determine when each variety is ready to be harvested. This is done by regular analysis of gland fill, cone weight, dry matter, alpha acids, beta acids and oils.
G'day, George.
G'day AJ, g'day Nathan.
G'day. So we're heading into harvest. What are the key indicators that tell you that a variety is ready to start picking?
One of the key indicators is the maximum accumulation of alpha acid with the maximum accumulation of oils. So there's a process of metabolite accumulation that occurs through hop cone maturation, and that's through from the flavonoids to the beta and alpha acids to the sesquiterpenes and monoterpenes, and then finally the thiols.
We also need to consider dry matter and cone weight to achieve an economical yield. When a variety is ready to harvest, it goes through our standardised production process to ensure the hops meet our specifications every step of the way.
Nathan, the first stage in the process is picking. We conduct extraneous matter tests regularly throughout each shift. This involves separating the hops from the stem and leaf and weighing both. The results of these checks are generally under 1%. If it starts to creep up, we know we need to adjust the speed of the picker, the speed of the fan, or the angle of the dribble belts to get it back down again.
So how deep do you need to fill the kiln here before you start the process?
We fill the beds up to 600 mils. We fire the burners up and they come up to 65 degrees, and then we dry the hops between 8 and 12% moisture. This can take anywhere between 8 to 12 hours, so we check the moisture levels after 8 hours, then more and more frequently from that point on until they are in spec.
So I've seen the operators waiting around here through the hops. How do they measure the moisture level during kilning?
They use a moisture meter, and they walk in a diamond pattern across the floor, and so they're measuring from the centre out to the extremities of the kiln floor. As soon as the probe returns a reading within the target range, the burners are turned off and the floor is cooled. And then the kilned hops are dropped into the conditioning floor where they rest for at least 12 hours to allow the heat and the moisture levels to distribute evenly.
So what happens to the hops next after that 12-hour period?
We press them into bales that have strict temperature and moisture specifications. Moisture must be between 8 and 12%, and temperature must completely stabilise before we transfer them to our warehouses. Any bales that don't meet these specifications remain in the processing facilities for corrective action. We allocate a different lot number to every pallet, which is equivalent to 6 by 110 kilogram bales, and conduct auger sampling on every lot number to confirm it is in spec.
So this year we have a new lab set up next to the bale press so that we can get results for alpha acid and oil contents in a much quicker fashion.
That's got to be really good for quality, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it means we're producing hop storage index values for every bale that comes through, which will give us better quality outcomes in the blends.
What sort of lab methods do you use to analyse your auger samples?
So we use a few different pieces of equipment. In the past we've used lead conductance value to produce alpha acid content, but we've since phased that out for sustainability reasons. Now we use near-infrared spectroscopy, which is much safer and more efficient. We've been running NIR in parallel with the ultraviolet spectrophotometer, distillation and moisture analysis to continuously improve the accuracy of our model. The UV spectroanalysis gives us our alpha and beta acid values as well as our hop storage index, and the distillation apparatus gives us our oil content. But this is a relatively slow manual process that takes around 3 hours per auger sample, whereas NIR is faster, indirect, and only takes around 5 minutes per auger sample since no analyte extraction is required. So with the NIR, we've been able to increase the number of oil contents we can produce from 6 samples a day to 60. And we now have the capacity to produce oil content and HSI values for every bale during harvest on top of alpha content. NIR is also employed for all our pre-harvest analysis.
Nathan, once the bales are in spec, we use digital thermometers to measure the temperature of the pellets and also throughout the process.
So is there a point in this process where it's really critical to maintain temperature?
That'd be where the powder passes through the die, at which point it should be a maximum of 55 degrees Celsius to make sure that the pellets hold their shape in the final package. We also conduct hourly density checks for the same reason. Then once they've been cooled, the pellets are packaged into oxygen barrier laminated foil pouches from which the oxygen is evacuated before being backflushed with carbon dioxide and sealed. The seal is currently checked by visual inspection and a Hague leak detector to make sure that there are no leaks that could lead to increased oxygen levels in the foil. And we use a gas analyzer to test the carbon dioxide and the oxygen levels within the foil.
So you've got a really strong focus on maximising the benefit of your hops in the finished product. There's often a long time between when your hops are packaged here and we brew beer with them. What do you do in that period to make sure that, the quality of the hops is maintained?
Our packaged hops are transported to warehouses across Australia, where they're stored between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius until they are called up by the brewers. We have long-term relationships with our warehouse contractors who all have climate monitoring systems in place. We also include them in our annual internal audit to ensure the conditions continue to support high quality in the final package.
I think you'll agree, the way brewers use hops has changed significantly over the years. It's more important now than ever to understand the information we present from our quality checks. Every box has a lot code that links back to a certificate of analysis. It's the COA that has a standardised presentation of information relating to alpha, beta, oils, moistures. It's a way for brewers to measure slight differences year on year or lot by lot so they can adjust their recipes accordingly.
The lot number also allows for complete traceability from where the hops were grown to how they were sprayed to when they were harvested and how they were dried. This level of detail ensures we adhere to the chemical guidelines of countries around the world.
Every aspect of our quality management system is designed to ensure only the highest quality hops get into the hands of brewers. We're continuously investing in quality improvements so that you can get the absolute maximum flavour out of our hops and continue brewing and drinking consistently delicious beers.
Hi, I'm Peter Hamilton, Inventory and Quality Manager for Hop Products Australia.
And I'm George Webster, Laboratory Coordinator. Thanks for showing an interest in our quality management system. We are keen to show you how this system is vertically integrated into our business so we can consistently offer brewers high quality Australian hops.
At HPA, we are committed to quality. We have a no-nonsense quality management system that is ISO 9001 and HACCP certified. Certification from independent testing institutes ensures our hops are held to the highest quality, safety and responsibility standards. Our production process is subject to regular internal and external audits, so we continue to uphold these standards as well as identifying opportunities for improvement. Hop Products Australia is certified to ISO 9001-2015. We are certified to HACCP, KOSHER, we are allergen free, GMO free, irradiation and fumigation free. All these certificates are available on our website. ISO stands for International Standards Organisation. At HPA, we are certified to the ISO 9001-2015 standard. ISO 9001-2015
is an international standard for quality management. Certification guarantees we comply with regulatory processes, product and service requirements. It improves brewing experience by ensuring products meet expectations. The standard is based on the Plan, Do, Check, Act or PDCA model. Plan stands for review where we want to be. This includes brewer requirements and risks. Do, implement our plan with correct training and equipment. Check stands for measure how we have gone. Check we did what we planned. Act, review our performance and use what we learnt to improve for the future. The PDCA model creates a framework for continual improvement. HPA is certified to HACCP. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. It is a science-based system that identifies, evaluates and controls hazards to ensure food safety. Some of these hazards include biological, chemical, physical, allergen, quality and regulatory hazards. HACCP is compliant with other domestic and international food safety management systems. Because of the HACCP system, brewers can have complete confidence that our hops are safe to add to their beer. HACCP is based on 7 key principles. First principle is hazard analysis. We identify the hazards, the severity and the likelihood that it will occur. The second principle is CCP determination. We categorise the hazards into what we call critical control points or CCPs or control points CPs, based on the severity and the likelihood of the hazard. CCP critical limits are set for all our CCPs and CPs that allow enough time to correct before the limits are reached. We establish a system of procedures and records to monitor our CCPs and CPs. Hop Products Australia has a system of corrective action if monitoring shows a CCP or a CP is not under control. This system identifies who is responsible to correct, what action to take to re-establish control. We also have procedures that verify our HACCP system is working, for example, lab testing, internal and external audits, physical assessments, etc. HPA has a documentation system that shows HPA's HACCP plan has been effectively managed and implemented. Some examples of these documents are our HACCP plan, meeting minutes, product descriptions, hazard analysis, corrective actions, and HACCP training records for our operators. So HACCP is focused on prevention rather than relying on end product testing. We receive our ISO and HACCP certifications from Standards Global Services or SGS. SGS is the world-leading inspection, verification, testing and certification company. They ensure our products, processes and services comply with international standards and regulations. Certification from an independent testing institute provides brewers with objective assurance that our hops are held to the highest quality, safety and responsibility standards. HPA is kosher certified. Kosher is a term used to describe food that complies with the strict dietary standards of the traditional Jewish law. HPA is audited annually by KOSHER Australia. KOSHER Australia is widely recognised as the leading kosher certification body in Australasia. Stamp of kosher approval by a rabbinic agency verifies they have checked our hops, production facilities and processes to ensure all ingredients, tools and machinery have no trace of non-kosher substances. Certification authorises us to use the kosher symbol in our literature and on our packaging. There is 3 steps to kosher certification. Firstly, we complete a certification checklist that provides KOSHER Australia with key information. KOSHER Australia then audit our sites. They then determine the condition of certification based on the checklist and the audit. Our allergen statement verifies we have checked our hops, production facility and processes to ensure all ingredients, tools and machinery have no traces of the following allergens: gluten-containing cereals, other than those that are present in beer and spirits, crustacea and their products, eggs and egg products, fish and fish products, milk and milk products, tree nuts, sesame seeds and their products, peanuts, lupulins, soybeans and their products. On our website we have a GMO statement. Our GMO statement verifies that our hops are neither genetically modified nor have the resulting hop products come into contact with genetically modified organisms or GMOs during the production process. This statement is made voluntary and is subject to relevant fair trading laws which prohibited representations about food that are false, misleading or deceptive. The Australian hop industry is fortunate to be free from any damaging pests and diseases that affect hop production overseas. We adhere to an approved list of agrochemicals in accordance with safe storage and handling procedures. We also have an approved list of food-grade grease and lubricants that are used on any machinery that comes into contact with our hops. Each season we analyse our hops for agrochemicals and heavy metals. Our agrochemical analysis are performed by AgriFood Technology, who test for 265 agrochemicals. AgriFood Technology are approved by the National Association of Testing Authority, or NATA, and are ISO 9001 certified. We analyse one sample for every 40 tonnes of hops, ensuring all varieties and growing regions are represented. Our heavy metal analysis are performed by a NATA accredited lab who test 5 random samples representing each growing region for arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, nickel, copper, iron, selenium, chromium and cobalt. Our hops do not go out to the brewers until the results come back. If MRL or heavy metal analysis come back above the accepted levels, the affected hops are isolated, we retest the original sample to confirm the result, and take further samples to ascertain the extent of the issue. We are able to trace the use of agrochemicals using our paddock log records. Our paddock logs provide complete traceability. Traceability that goes all the way back to which garden they came from, the specific batch of agricultural chemicals they were sprayed with, as well as the machinery that was used for application. In 2020, no agricultural chemical residues or heavy metals were detected above the global best practice maximum residue limits MRLs. To make sure our systems are working correctly, we conduct internal audits of our quality management system, processes and procedures every year. We are subject to external audits by KOSHER Australia, SGS Australia during our annual ISO 9001 HACCP certification. We also complete 10 to 12 desk audits for various customers per year. We were audited by Lion in 2020 and CUB in 2019. We have also been audited by Kirin and Heineken in the past. I'll now hand you over to George to discuss some of our other quality innovations.
Thanks, Peter. Here at HBA, it's our mission to deliver the highest possible quality with the lowest possible variance in flavour. But the way brewers use hops has evolved over the years, and we're still discovering the quirks of newer hopping regimes. By constantly reviewing our nutrient regime, water management and harvest timing to maximise hop flavour in beer, there's a fine line between the accumulation of big thiles and small thiles, which means the shift between fruity and onion garlic flavours can happen quickly. The popularity of Galaxy means that we're currently pushing the boundaries on late harvest, so we're working harder than ever to tighten up our processes as much as possible. We're now using NIR analysis to tighten our harvest windows by obtaining more information per sample, and we have been conducting more in-house brewing trials to improve our understanding of how each hop performs in a range of beer styles. HBA's in-house brewing trials will help us offer valuable technical advice to brewers. In order to preserve impact in beer, we seal our hops in oxygen barrier laminated foil pouches that have been back flush with carbon dioxide. Unopened foils will last up to 3 years in storage at temperatures of 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. We have observed that storage stability varies from variety to variety, and that once a foil is opened, the oxidization of alpha acids begins almost immediately. Each hop has different levels of natural antioxidants and varying susceptibility to oxidation. While this can cause them to lose quality faster, even under identical storage conditions, but we do know that not every foil will be used in its entirety as soon as it's opened. Once oxidation commences, the more volatile oils, such as myrcene, are rapidly lost, and the higher the temperature, the more they will degrade. Additionally, hops exposed to high levels of UV light can produce off or cheesy flavours in beer. There are some simple and cost-effective steps that brewers can take to keep their hops fresh and their beers consistent. Step 1 is to refrigerate hops in storage temperatures of 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. Hops exposed to high temperatures can rapidly degrade, and this degradation can be reduced by half for every 15 degrees Celsius drop in temperature. The compact shape of hop pellets keeps out a lot of the oxygen and allows them to be easily vacuum packed in order to slow the loss of alpha acids and oils. They can also take up less storage space, making it more practical to keep them in the fridge. Step 2 is to reseal open foils. We recommend the use of a commercial chamber vacuum sealer. 2 key features a brewer should look for in a vacuum sealer are the ability to comfortably hold a 5 kilogram foil and a pre-installed inert gas backflushing capability, or the option to fit a separate gas backflushing kit. These devices typically start at around $5,000 Australian when brand new, but you can often source them second-hand from restaurants. They are a particularly good investment for those with brew pubs, as it can be used in both the brewery and the kitchen. Ideally, brewers should reseal the original foils to retain the benefits of the oxygen barrier. Hops in resealed foils should last up to 2 months, depending on the variety and overall exposure to oxygen. We would say the next best thing is a commercial-grade vacuum bag. If vacuum sealing is not an option, brewers should simply squeeze all oxygen out of the foil and then wrap and tape it as tightly as possible to eliminate the presence of oxygen. Ideally, once a foil has been opened, the hop should be used within a few days to minimise the loss of alpha acids and oils and maximise impact in beer. Finally, step 3, date and timestamp open foils. Again, it is worth re-mentioning that hops resealed in their foil last up to 2 months. If hops are not resealed in their foils, brewers should label them with their variety, lock code, crop year, alpha acid percentage, and weight to help determine their expected impact in beer at the time of use. Thanks for being part of this session. Now we're going to head straight into a live Q&A with Nathan Kalman from Jamesburg.
G'day. Thanks again for joining us for a tour around our quality systems. We seek to have this vertically integrated quality system to make sure that we, this team and our on-farm team, can deliver you, the brewer, the highest quality hops that we can. Again, very fortunate to be joined by Simon and Pete today, and Nathan Kalman up at the Bogues Brewery in Launceston. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, mate.
Great to be here, OJ.
Mate, I really appreciate, first of all, right from the top, really appreciate how much time you've made available for us to join us on farm and now for the live Q&A chat here. Nathan's been working for Lion since 2007 and has had quite a journey and for me a fascinating series of roles in the Lion organisation, coming in as a part of the innovation and NPD team, spinning off into production at Tui's, one of the big Lion breweries here in Australia, before moving down to the J. Bogan Son Brewery in our home state of Tasmania, which has gone through a number of changes, Nathan, and you've held a number of roles right in the brewing stream there, in lean manufacturing, and now actually heading the team up as brewery manager, so encompassing quite a range of plant equipment, logistics, site management, as well as oversight of the brewing operations. Is that a fair and accurate description of your quite wide remit in your current role?
Yeah, definitely, OJ. It's pretty broad these days, but still have brewing at heart.
Yes, I hear you. And I don't know, it's probably only meaningful to me, but very early in my beer journey, one of my light bulb beers was Bogues Premium. Probably still the flagship beer produced there at the Bogues Brewery, and still going strong today, many years after enlightening me to the joys of beer.
Well, good to hear.
So you've met Pete in our videos. Pete is quality and inventory manager here at HPA. Talking about background, a journey through an ag science background and into our farms in our northeast Victorian operations very early on in the early 90s.
That's it.
Yeah. In the early 90s. And basically has followed a career in the hop industry in this company in its different forms, and has been in a role here in headquarters now for
Since 2003.
Yeah.
So been at Hobart for that long.
That is fantastic. So been with HPA for over 30 years, lending his expertise and his experience to some great outcomes. So thanks for making yourself available. It is it is the middle of harvest, and these guys both have actual on-farm responsibilities and roles. So I'm deeply appreciative of you guys making time for us.
Thanks, AJ.
And now, Simon, you've met in previous iterations, famous from such videos as Let's Meet Eclipse and Welcome to the Breeding Program. Please check him out as Simon shares a bit more of his in-depth knowledge of those topics that are close to our heart. Simon has a background in agricultural science and holds a PhD in quantitative plant genetics. Has been with the company since 2007. And leading up our breeding program, and is our go-to for all things hop science and our expert in hop breeding. So thank you, mate.
Thanks, AJ.
Right, if you're listening live, please feel free to pop any questions in the chat box there, and we'll try and pick them up as we go. And if not, we'll try and circle back on them at the end of the session. First, though, we're going to give you a little bit more insight into our program, and Simon, in George's absence. So George, we've had a late change to the lineup today. George and his family have welcomed a new addition, so Simon's on the hook for this.
Substitute today.
Yep, substituted in. Now, in the video, George speaks to quite a high throughput through the labs. Roughly, just recap for us again, roughly how many tests and results does that lead to?
Yeah, so I think across all of our production sites, it tallies up to about 3,500 individual samples in the production system every year. And I think it maths out as like 60,000 individual measurements taken across those 3,500 samples.
Yeah, and that's across those pre-harvest and in-harvest variables that we value: dry matter, cone weights,
oil content, dry matter, cone weight, oil content in the pre-harvest, and then moisture and oil content and alpha acid, beta acid accumulation, hop storage index, in all of the processed products, so bales and pellets.
Yeah. And so those, in terms of decision making, we rub those 5 or 6 variables together in pursuit of that picking window optimal quality.
Yes, yeah. So we use it to manage the sequence of paddocks to get the optimal, try and hit the targets for each individual paddock as best we can. And then obviously a heavy reliance upon the information on the processed product to manage the blending within varieties.
Yep. And that, just I guess we're a little off topic perhaps, but that decision on harvest window and paddock sequence and things like that, it's a collaborative decision between
me
quality.
And Simon. Yep.
Yeah, there's a few of us stick our oars in on that one. There's, necessarily so there's often a little bit of angst about it too, because you've got competing interests, if you like. There's the pure logistics of farm operations. Some things are easier to do than others. So the best outcome, it welcomes different opinions.
So yes, exactly. You've got considerations about operational issues like labour force management, the rate at which a farm manager can get across the ground and execute a harvest window, through to the quality concerns, adherence to issues, quality systems-based issues like whether there's any withholding periods, etc. Then the laboratory-based guidance or information that we all feed in to that.
So it's not a really hard fixed sort of decision matrix. It's not something that's terribly amenable to that. But there's lots of people involved in trying to massage that into the right shape.
Yeah, excellent. So moving on from that, we're in the middle of or coming to the tail end of quite an aggressive expansion in our own production base. Have there been any changes in lab methodology to assist in quality as we expand?
Yeah, the biggest one, and it was really the reason why George came to the business of HPA. A few years ago, we decided that we needed to increase our analytical capacity to improve our production control from bale product, particularly targeting oil content for blending. So we committed to developing indirect analysis through near-infrared technologies, and George came to the business really with a remit to do the work, to do the fundamental work to develop the models that would allow us to do that. And he's been with us since then. We worked with a company in New Zealand called Seguido, and we now have the capability to analyse a hop sample and get ASBC spectro, alpha acids, beta acids, hop storage index, moisture content and oil content from a single scan.
Wow.
In about 3 minutes.
Wow. So from one sample prep,
yeah,
3 minutes later, you can have that amount of data behind those variables.
Yeah. And a normal industry standard essential oil determination would normally take 3.5 to 4 hours.
And so, I mean, just guess for the audience as well, the model is a series of correlations between NIR information backed by wet chemistry, actual distillations, and correlating those?
Yeah, there's some fancy maths that take the spectral profile of the sample and relate that to the analytical data of the hops over, I can't remember the number of samples there are in the model system now, but it's, we're coming up to 4 years worth of data.
Fabulous.
In that system.
As soon as Simon says fancy maths, my eyes just close.
That's it.
So tell me again, going back into your original answer of the motivations for moving to NIR was about oil. Why is our understanding of oil driving our assessment of our quality?
So it's that insight around that there is variability in oil content, both within a field, between different fields, and at different times across harvest. We obviously understand to some extent, we understand the variability within our varieties, and the desire to produce a better, a more consistent pellet product. And to do that, we really needed to understand what the oil content in the bales flowing through the system was. And with a 4-hour distillation, producing, each site we produce about 18 bales an hour on 2 10-hour shifts a day. So that's a lot of bales coming through the system, and you just cannot keep up with traditional distillation methods.
Yeah. You'd have a whole hall filled with distillation kit just to try and
and still getting nowhere.
Yeah. And oil management of our oil in the finished product is all about that seeking to present consistent, high quality hops that do what we say they're going to do, that performance, that fulfilling the promise of impacted flavour. So managing our oil levels across, as Simon says, across a variability in the agricultural outputs is paramount to guaranteeing or ensuring that we can have an impact in a brewer's beer.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that I think is quite cool about that is that all of a sudden that puts pressure on our agriculture and horticulture to deliver a higher base level, which I think, it's a fascinating challenge. You bring this technology and you don't really know what it's going to do to the business.
Yes, beware the questions you ask.
Absolutely,
But it is also about HPA acknowledging that it's incumbent upon us to look after the brewers in that way, challenge our agriculture to put out a high quality base, challenge our systems, analytical and inventory systems and production methodology systems to fulfill that promise, to deliver highest possible average oil, lowest possible variance in oil across an entire crop.
Yeah.
That's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and if we don't have the information, we don't know that we've got to do it. So,
and this introduction of this technology has given us that edge on insight over what we previously had.
Definitely, a huge amount.
So, Pete, your top of mind answer, we will, with the introduction of NIR, we will get higher average, lower variance in the finished lots.
That's right.
Yep.
No, it enables us to do a very fast blending. We're able to get data very quickly. It just helps all down the line, right through the processing system.
So the capture of NIR we've seen at the bale press, that is literally effectively live loaded into the database.
Yep.
You guys can see that information. This was not previously available to us.
No.
Yep. No, it used to be 1 to 2 hours before you got anything. Now I'm getting it within 1 or 2 minutes.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
All right, Pete. Well, in the unlikely event that a brewer happens to get a problem, and we field a quality orientated complaint, what's the process? Where do we go?
Well, we take all complaints really seriously. So we have a quality management system, and we record the complaint. So we'll get all the details from the brewer of exactly what is the issue, what's the problem. We then have a system where we're able to trace back right through the process. We have a lot number system on each of the bales, which gives us, we can get back to information like what was the alpha acid, what was the moisture. We can even trace right back to the paddock where the hops actually came from. We can look at what was applied to that paddock. So we can look at what chemicals were applied, what fertilizers were applied. It enables us to be sort of like private investigators and get right into it and get right into the information, so that we can sort of find where the issue has gone, where the problem is, and then we can feed back to the brewer what we're going to do to fix the problem. So going forward, we have a better quality product.
We're quite brave, I would say, about our investigations and feeding back in our quality loop. So, you know, a brewer that makes a quality complaint, you know, they can have faith in us to adequately investigate it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Tell them what our. I mean, and it's why Nathan's joining us in this way, because you know, the door is open to customer audit. You know, gee, I don't know. Feels like almost every week through harvest, someone in other times, it's a bit limited this year, but someone's auditing us.
Yep.
Whether it's our ISO audits or our kosher audits.
Yep. No, we're actually being audited tomorrow.
Is that right? Which one is that?
SGS.
Yeah, so that's pursuant to our ISO.
Oh, 9000.
Yeah, fantastic. Can you give me an example where a quality complaint has come in and it has led to a change in the way we manage our systems or our outputs or our information?
Yep. We had a complaint from a brewer who was pulling the foil out of the carton and was placing the foils around the brewery, and then went back to look at it and go, hang on, I don't know what variety that is. I don't know what crop year it is. There was no information on the foil. We had all the information on the label. So that complaint came through from the brewer saying, I don't know what variety I'm putting in my beer. So we took that information on board, and we now print crop year variety on every single foil we produce.
And you know, I kind of appreciate that, because it's a simple example, but for me, it's about listening and about you know, being prepared to adjust our you know, somewhat older systems on older infrastructure. Like, to be honest, and I would say, you know, another example might be, you know, pellet density and uniformity and the application in the brewery and dry hopping situations. We listen to feedback about performance from brewers and whatever their needs are, and then we go back to our, you know, inside our lines and have a look at how we can address those.
Yep.
Simon, just a question from the audience, actually. Back onto NIR for 2 seconds. Can you talk to us about accuracy? We talk about correlation between the wet chemistry side and correlating it to build the model.
Yep.
Can you comment about accuracy against that?
So at several levels, yeah. So we obviously have, from the data science team at Seguido, we have their very precise statistical accuracies for each of the, so we have a different model for each measurement, obviously. We have those, we know where they sit, but we also have our lived experience, if you like. And it's taken us, we gave ourselves a year of gathering data and build the initial models. And then the sort of concept when we went in was that we would have it running in the background on one site in year 2, and then in year 3 we would be able to use it. And after year 3 we could make a decision about committing going forward. But the system proved to be so useful. You know, we were so hungry for that information on that timeline that it kind of got ahead of that 3-year time frame. And potentially in year 3, the models were a little green. And the problem with the accuracy at that point was the range of variability in the reference data that we had supplied to build the model. So for moisture, for example, to get accurate prediction across the range of moistures that we see in our bales, we needed to have good analyses of lots of samples that were a lot lower and a lot higher than the working range that we saw.
Yeah, I see. So even though you want to operate here, you need a model that's this
considerably broader than that. And it took us, so we had it applied out there and we're trying to use it. And it took us a little while to catch up with that range of good, accurate reference data feeding into the model, which we have now. So, we now have a reasonably accurate model that across the working range that we like to work in most of those variables.
For something like alpha, like clearly we only grow a certain set of varieties. Their alpha range is typically quite high in the global scheme of things. Does it apply for alpha as well? You know, we don't have hops in the European, 5 and under % alpha range. Has that been troublesome in our model?
Given that we don't come across those hops that often, not for us necessarily, but we've been really, really sure to gather up samples from around the world. Obviously, lots of different crop years are in there, so we can go and pull samples from 2017 or 2015 if we can find them and analyse them now, so they contribute. We've had a bit of assistance from our partners within Bath Haas Group as well, so to get some European and North American information in. So while I can't speak directly to having to use the system on a European aroma hop in a production context, what we see when we run that type of sample is that the performance is good enough for the process control job that we want to do.
And I guess one last question on behalf of the brewer, if I can extrapolate, is you're relying on the NIR, do you then back check with traditional methods to make sure that lot that I'm going to get is accurate?
So for our internal process control, so our bale monitoring, we back up every live instantaneous NIR analysis with an up and moisture, for example. Because moisture is the critical one for us in terms of stability and runnability and things like that. So every sample is still going through the oven. Okay, and that's just an insurance position for us.
And is it the same, Peter, on finished pellet block codes? So when a label goes on the box and the COA has this much alpha and this much oil, the NIR model is corroborated?
Well, it works the other way.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So we're still using ASBC spectro by solvent extraction for labelling. Okay.
For the labels, we use the traditional methods, but we're backing up with NIR.
And I mean, this is probably, you might not have this number in your head, but for that finished lot, NIR oil versus ASBC spectro oil.
Oil's distillation.
Sorry, alpha. Is there an R squared there? Can you say like our correlation is 0.92, 0.98?
It's a little bit different depending on which, so alpha is very strong. It's 9.6, 9.7, maybe even higher. Beta's a little weaker because we haven't actively worked on the beta model too much.
Well, for finished labelling, it's
different. And we haven't, we've obviously focused on alpha and oil in that range of samples that we've fed in. We haven't done that for beta, so we haven't tried to give it, it hasn't been an emphasis for us. The oil content is really, really good. And getting better, given that it takes so long to get the reference data for oils. There's not as many samples in that model, so that's getting sort of stronger.
Moisture's pretty good
by the day, and we've worked really, really, really hard on moisture because that is the critical process.
That's excellent.
So I guess from the conversation, you can see we are still approaching NIR as an in-house production management tool primarily.
Definitely.
And we continue to increase the data set, increase the strength of the models. And build our reliance the
other, so just occurred to me then, the other thing that's just that comes with it, so we're getting all this information on a much more usable timeline than you would normally get, but we've also, so those samples, those process samples and bales used to be a huge proportion of our solvent work through the labs. And the result has been that we have gone from about 600 litres of solvent through the labs per site per year to 60. Not that much. So the only solvent work that we're doing are our check samples and our pellets and the odd paddock or bale sample.
Yeah, which is fantastic news for a sustainability perspective.
And OH&S.
Yeah,
it's just great not having that stuff on site.
Nathan, thanks for sitting tight there, mate. Over to you now, mate. I appreciate it. It's early in the morning. Hope you've got a coffee there. Look, I can only imagine that quality is a significantly high priority at the brewery. When you're dealing with suppliers and appointing supply partners, are there specific certifications and raw material suppliers need to have before they can work in effectively with you?
Yeah, no, there's probably a couple of external ones that we look for. So, Pete mentioned, the ISO 9000 series of certification. So that's around, your quality system. That's obviously really, really important for us and what we look for. But secondary to that is probably your food safety or HACCP certification, which I know you also have. Probably thirdly to that, though, we also run our own approved supplier or internal audit schedule of suppliers, which you guys are accredited for. So typically that means we'll come and spend some time with you every few years, and during those audits, we want to have a bit more of a deeper look around, some of the other systems that you have in place on site that ensure, the quality of what you're doing. So things like having, really strong, good manufacturing practices in your plant and equipment, having good pest control systems, along with a lot of other things that, ultimately give us a level of comfort around the quality of what, you send us on a regular basis.
And so in terms of manufacturing, quality manufacturing practice, is this things like food grade lubes in the machinery and hydraulics and things like this?
Yeah, things like that, right down to, as you move through the plant, how do you sort of limit human contact in the kilning area? So I know that you've got quite strict rules during that process around, having limited number of people come into the, the kilning area where, contamination of, your, kilned hops can occur. So that's probably a classic example of where, that system adds value to the end user.
Great, and this is a supplier assessment is on a off the top of my head a 2 or 3 year rolling basis for line to come on site at HPA. We've been supplying hops into the Tui's, Castlemaine Perkins, line group since before HPA was HPA, right? So we've been working together for a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, typically, we'll often try and come through every year just to have a look at the general quality of the hop and how the harvest is progressing, and maintain those relationships with the team you've got there. But the certification side of things is typically on a 2 or 3 year sort of cycle.
The formal 2 or 3 year thing aside, are you able to harness the on-site visits if it's just a more sort of industrial tourism perspective without the formality of audit? Your team members coming on our farms quite regularly on both sites every year. Does that feed into your systems? Are you able to capture those experiences?
Yeah. I think that there's a few elements there. So it always builds our brewers' capability. I think we're pretty lucky here in Tassie that you can go and visit a hop farm by jumping in the car and driving for an hour or two. But we look at our other sites all over the mainland Australia region to actually build capability into those developing brewers and their understanding of, what does a hop farm look like? How does it function? What are the different constraints that might impact on a crop year and the quality of what you produce? So, often when we do bring people through, the quality expectations that we'd have of your systems are the same quality expectations we have of ourselves. So often we might come through and see something that you guys are doing really well and take that away as a learning, or we might see something that can help you and the rest of your customers. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's always.
I think it's a really important two-way street there as well. And I mean, like, frankly, we love having the really high quality and lots of horsepower behind your audits and other customer audits, because we do get quite a bit of learning out of it.
We do.
So we're always open for it. I guess the other part of the on-farm experience for outside the formal audit piece, the other takeaway from on-farm experience is our conversations are about these quality elements, about oil and alpha and how the growing of hops influences these things. And when the brewer finally gets that story on a COA, I feel like the COA tells a story about those hops. It summarises that key information. Are there any particular analysis you find yourself referring to regularly so that you can harness these hops for whatever purpose they are in your brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it probably comes down a little bit to the variety that you're using and its purpose in a brand. So, if we were producing a classic Australian, draft lager, for example, where, we're adding varieties like Super Pride for, its bittering characteristics, we'd be looking at that COA around, what is the alpha content? And how consistent is that alpha content across a crop year, for example. But if we were making a different style of beer where we're using different varieties like, your Galaxy or Ella, we would then be probably more interested in the oil content so that, we can produce, a product that has a consistent level of, that variety's hop aroma. So, there's definitely a few different things there that we look at depending on, the variety's purpose in the brand.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it is, I think it's the reason why which we seek to improve, performance on farm and seek to present meaningful information to brewers. And it is our alignment on production of quality hops from this team so that you guys can go and work your magic and make that consistent high quality product. And the COA is an important piece, including, as Pete talked to earlier, that lot code demonstrated.
It's very important.
Allowing us to dovetail in with your needs and our needs and be able to help you guys make the most consistent beer you can. We've actually taken another question. It's back to you guys. So the question relates to alpha and oil loss between bale and pellet. First of all, contextualize that step, but then bring it back to how we're watching that and managing that.
Okay. Do you want that?
I can do it. We do pre-harvest oil testing. We do pre-harvest alpha testing. We also test the bales. We test in the conditioning sheds. We're testing all the way through our process right through to the pellets. And we are watching the loss as it goes through the system because there is a loss. We try and actively reduce the handling of the hops. Because every time you handle hops, they do lose alpha acid and oil, etc. We're constantly right through the whole process looking at all things like temperature, what's the temperature of the conditioning area, the temperature of the bales. It's quite an important part of our process that we test all the way through, and we actually then report at the end of our season. We look at how our losses have been, how can we improve for the next year as well. And
the monitoring now with the introduction of NIR, the monitoring of bale is with NIR, sorry?
Yeah. Well, that's it's the most efficient method that we have by a long shot. The other one, we look at bales outbound, or bales at the press, and we also look at them when they come back into the pellet plant before that. So we're gathering data along the way now of
And the other thing we're doing also is we're trying to get our product to the cool stores as quickly as possible. So the time from baling to cool store or from baling to pelleting, we're actively working hard to keep that down. So we're trying to have them no more than, say, 5 to 6 days after pressing before it either gets to a cool store or to the pellet plant.
So loss between bale and pellet is a reality. We've got a series of logistical and handling methodologies to minimise that. We are using our NIR to facilitate better data and monitoring of the outcomes. And in terms of judging success, we do circle back on these post-harvest in quite a wide-ranging review of performance. And as Pete says, we actually have metrics that we judge our own success against in relation to, say, timeliness, and the effectiveness of our logistics. And also that absolute, like, we have some expectations around what good management will lead to in terms of loss and oil and alpha. And so we take that very seriously. Obviously, it's on two issues. It's an economic proposition for us, alpha loss, potentially back in those days, certainly weight loss, but also about oil loss and bang for buck and impact in beer, because that is mission critical for us. So to reassure brewers out there that, this is a reality of processing hops from infield at this much oil or whatever metric through to pellet, there will be some loss, but we take it seriously enough to actually measure it and judge our performance and make changes where we need to. So guys, I'd like to wrap up on that note and a big shout out to Nathan. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate you joining us today and giving us a little insight into the quality parameters that are important in the brewery and how you work with key suppliers, such as ourselves, and some insight into your audit process. And to you too, thank you again, Middle of Harvest, making yourselves available to assist me with having a great chat about quality. Okay, and it is a topic that's really close to our hearts here.
Yep. Thanks, AJ.
Great.
A huge thank you to everyone who was part of this session. If you missed some of the action because you couldn't understand our Aussie accents, a recording will be uploaded to hops.com.au/virtual-harvest. For further information, please email info@hops.com.au, and we hope to welcome you all on farm again soon.